Hello everybody, welcome back to the Brothers Grimdark and another unit focus. Today we're looking at Aeldari again, and I think one of the oldest units that I can remember ever seeing in 40k, and that is the Wraithlords. So obviously back in the day they were a bit more hunched. They had the sort of big orangutan arms with the huge fists at the bottom of them, massive legs, which they still do have to some extent, but used to be even more extreme. And they had that classic rotary cannon on the shoulder. I can still really remember that old metal kit. And the plastic kit is obviously not that new either. It feels like it's been around for 20 years, but it's maybe not that old. It's maybe more like 15. But I believe the oldest model that we have in the studio is, where is he? Is this guy. I could be wrong about that, but he's at least 15 years old, possibly more, and he used to be in a Laytok colours, but then when I decided to get back into the hobby and wanted to do an Aeldari force, I switched over from my Laytok to Iyanden just because I wanted to have as many Wraith constructs in my force as possible and make the most of that. Yes, Wraith constructs. What are they? What are they all about? So when an Aeldari dies, if his friends are lucky enough to be able to get his spirit stone from him, that gets stuck in the infinity circuit, and which is essentially Aeldar's afterlife, and it keeps their soul nice and safe from Slaanesh, because Slaanesh is a bad and kind of has a thing for Aeldari. It's a very toxic relationship, that one. But in times of war, those spirit stones can be taken from the infinity circuit and housed inside Wraith bone constructs, which are these huge war machines, as you've just seen, which go into battle with this Aeldari spirit inside them. So they're kind of like Space Marine dreadnoughts, but rather than there being sort of a ruined form of a fallen warrior, it's just the soul that goes inside the mech suit, I guess. And I love mechs, which is why I was drawn to Iyanden so much. That and the colour scheme. I really love yellow and blue. It's my favourite colour scheme. But yeah, let's move on to the datasheet and what a Wraithlord can do for you. So Wraithlord is in the elite section. You can only take one in a unit. They're movement 8, so again that's a nice little bonus on top of what the Space Marine counterpart can do with only movement 6, unless you're running a Redemptor obviously, but then that's kind of a different thing. And then you've got weapon skill 3+, plus skill 3+, strength 7, again, nice little bonus there. Toughness 8, another little bonus. Wounds 9, another little bonus. Attacks 4, which is going to average out as being slightly less, because although the Space Marine Dreadnought has 4 attacks, it's going to get that +1 for shock assault a lot of the time. Leadership 9 and a 3-up save. It comes with 2 shuriken catapults, which are range 18, assault 2, strength 4, AP -1, damage 1 shuriken, so on 6s they're going to be at AP -3, and it has 2 Wraithbone fists, which are melee weapon, strength user, so 7, AP -3, damage 3, which is a pretty solid weapon to have inbuilt. And that will be running you... Where have you gone? Where have you gone, Mr. Wraithlord? Bear with me. 100 points, which... that's cheap and cheerful. It's not too bad. You won't feel too upset if that gets blown off the board turn 1. But having said that, you are paying 100 points, so I would really want to invest a little bit more into that platform if you're putting that into it. So you can give it 2 heavy weapons. I would say if you want to keep it cheap and cheerful, stick 2 shuriken on that, shuriken cannons on that. So that's going to give you 6 shots, AP -1, strength 6, damage 2 with the shuriken keywords. That'll become AP -3 on 6s to wound. So will set you up at 120 points for that. That's quite nice and useful. But how I like to run them, because I'm generally lacking a little bit of anti-tank firepower in my Aeldari force, I usually use the Wraithlords as my platform for that. I stick 2 Brick Lances on there, so that's 140 points, and you get 2 strength 8, AP -4, damage 3 plus D3 shots, which is very nice. The Wraithlord is core, so that can become a bit more reliable if you've got an Autarch around, or a Spirit Seer, because the Spirit Seer allows you to reroll 1s to wound. So if suddenly that strength 8 shot that you've just rolled a 1 to wound on, that can become a little bit better and more reliable. he has obviously has Strands of Fate and the Wraith Bone form, so he subtracts one to damage characteristics that attack him, just like a Space Marine Dreadnought would. And then if you're running him as Iyanden, he's reducing AP minus 1 and AP minus 2 by 1. So again, it becomes a bit more durable if you run him through Iyanden. And the last option you can give him, which if I have the points, I really try to do, it's 15 points. So you might not always be able to find that in your force, but if you can, I like to do it, which is the Ghostglaive, which just makes his combat really much better and much more versatile. So it becomes 2 different profiles. So you can do the Crushing Strike, which is +2 strength, so that's strength 9, AP minus 4, and that's damage D3 plus 3, which is huge. When you're averaging 4 damage on something, even if you come up against things like Nurgle Terminators or whatever that are reducing damage by 1, then your flat damage, well, minimum damage 4, you're still going to be making sure that you kill a Terminator each time. So that's really, really powerful. Or if you come up against monsters or things like that, 3 plus D3, average 4, that's going to do some damage. And then also you can do the Sweeping Attack, which is strength user, so 7, AP minus 2, damage 2. But each time you make an attack with this weapon, you can make 2 hit rolls instead of 1. So suddenly 8 attacks, if you get charged by some Marines or you charge some Marines, 8 attacks at damage 2, AP minus 2 is nice. Obviously that's going to become AP minus 1 because Armor of Contempt, but you're still, going to cause that unit some problems. In terms of buffs, as I say, the Wraithlord's quite good on his own. Yeah, as I say, if you've got an Autarch nearby or a Spirit Seer, that doesn't hurt, just for those extra rerolls. But there aren't really too many stratagems or sort of psychic powers or things that I find that useful to stick on a Wraithlord. I mean, they can be, but there's usually other stuff that are better options. So for example, you could use the Relic Citronum of Iyanden to give him an extra attack. So that'd be 10 attacks that you'd have with that sweeping blow with his Ghost Sword. Oh, hello, dog. See, he disagrees as well. He thinks there's better options. Or a Guided Wraith Sight could be useful, just to make sure he's still getting that reroll 1s to wound. If he's out of range from your Spirit Seer, as I say, I think I'd rather put that on Wraith Blades than him, for the most part. And in terms of psychic powers, you could put Protect and Jinx on him. Again, there's better options. You could put Fortune on him, there's better options. If you're running Doom, which you probably are if you're running a Farseer, that's a useful one because you can stick Doom on something else and then you're rerolling your wounds, which is good. And Guide, again, I just don't think he churns out enough firepower on his own to really be worth it. So yeah, you're looking at 140 points with the Bright Lances or 155 with the Bright Lances and the Ghostglaives, which is how I like to run them. As I say, cheaper option, just rock around with some Shuriken Cannons for 120 points. I think there's still an argument for that. Generally, I don't need that in my force though. Generally what I'm lacking is the anti-tank, so I usually use my Wraithlords as my platform for that. So I'm usually running them with the Bright Lances, and yeah, they do that job for me. And yeah, I guess that's kind of there is a stratagem that can be useful on them actually, which is Tears of Isha, which can be handy, especially if you've got a Spirit Seer around. So it's basically for 1 CP you heal D3 wounds back onto him, and if you've got a Spirit Seer around, then it's flat 3. So that can be useful, if you think you've wiped out most of your opponent's anti-firepower, or if you just want to make sure that your opponent puts all that anti-firepower into him again, then yeah, you can keep him alive a little bit longer, which can be, just cause your opponent a little bit of a headache. If they get him down to 1 wound and then suddenly next turn he's back on 4, that's a little bit annoying that they then know that they need to put a bit more firepower into him again. So I find them really useful. There's definitely better combat in the aeldari book, and there's definitely better shooting for cheaper a lot of the time, but I really like the duality that you get from a Wraithlord. He gives you that decent move. He's movement 8. He gives you a decent tough platform, with that Wraith Construct form, 9 wounds, toughness 8, 3 up save. It's not the easiest thing to chew through in the world. If your opponent wants him dead, he will die, but you know, you've got to invest a little bit in doing it. And yeah, you get that pretty good shooting platform, and you get a bit of combat out of him. As I say, he doesn't really do anything amazingly, but he covers a lot of bases and can just be a really utilitarian piece, which I really like to have a few of those in my army. It's very nice to have units that you know are very good at one job, but it's also good to have some things where if you feel like something is lacking, you can have another unit that can go off and do a job against different sorts of things. So especially if he's running that Ghost Glaive, I know that he can be relied to go and chew through some infantry, or he can go after a monster or a vehicle. And yeah, I really like to do that. So that's how I like to run my Wraithlords. Let me know what you think, if you think they're just not worth the points and you'd rather just focus on having every unit being able to do their job well, like lots of aspect warriors or whatever, or if you think there is a place for him in the list. Let me know what you think, and yeah, comment on below. And hope you've enjoyed this week. We'll be back again soon with more unit focuses. We'll catch you then.